Mick a protective? Is he jealous of your activities?
Yeah, he's not very jealous lately. I don't know. He is pretty jealous.
Die-hard fans weren't afraid to jump in with their opinion on Mick's breakup with Jerry Hall.
For 22 years, Texas supermodel Jerry Hall stood beside rock icon Mick Jagger through fame, scandal, and heartbreak. But behind their picture-perfect romance were betrayals, painful rumors, and a legal bombshell no one ever saw coming. Now, after years of silence, Jerry Hall is sharing a perspective that could change how fans remember one of rock's most famous relationships. Reclaiming the narrative. We often think we know everything about the most famous people in the world because their lives play out across the front pages of newspapers. But do we really know it all? For a long time, Jerry Hall lived in that exact spotlight as the partner of Rolling Stones frontman Mick Jagger. To the public, they were the absolute picture of rock and roll royalty, but the image everyone saw on red carpets was carefully curated. Decades after their relationship dissolved, the legendary Texas supermodel is finally pulling back the curtain on what really went on behind closed doors. This sudden clarity comes at an interesting time, following major shifts in her life, including her abrupt 2022 divorce from media billionaire Rupert Murdoch, which reportedly arrived through a cold email. Now, completely free from the constraints of powerful men, she is ready to reclaim her own personal narrative and share the unvarnished reality. The cultural footprint of Mick and Jerry was massive, defining the fashion and music scenes of the late 20th century. Yet, beneath the glamour and global travel, the media frequently reduced Jerry to a gorgeous rock accessory. In reality, however, she was the steady operational anchor managing a deeply chaotic domestic world. While Jagger toured the world and chased the spotlight, Hall stayed home, single-handedly providing stability for their 4 children. It was a role that required an enormous amount of emotional heavy lifting, especially when dealing with a partner who was a self-admitted restless alley cat. Well, loving a man like Jagger came with a hidden psychological cost that the public could never truly see or understand from the outside. And the power dynamic between them was heavily tilted from the very start. Jerry was a young, small-town girl from Mesquite, Texas, who used her incredible work ethic and striking presence to build an independent, multi-million-dollar modeling empire in Paris. Despite her immense individual success and financial independence, the massive marketing machinery of the Rolling Stones frequently threatened to completely swallow her identity whole. She spent years quietly navigating his legendary public deceptions, constantly fighting to keep her head above water while fiercely protecting her young children's futures. But to understand how this high-profile romance eventually reached its explosive breaking point, it is absolutely necessary to trace the entire story back to its true historical beginning. Let's take a look at the precise moment Jerry committed the ultimate rock and roll sin: the Texas siren and the Roxy Music betrayal. Before she was ever linked to the Rolling Stones, Jerry Hall was already a self-made international force. She left the small town of Mesquite, Texas, with little more than a dream and a portfolio, landing straight in the high-fashion world of Paris. The young Texan shared a crowded, cheap apartment with future superstars Grace Jones and Jessica Lange, working tirelessly day and night until she became one of the most sought-after faces on top European runways. By the mid-1970s, she caught the eye of glam rock pioneer Bryan Ferry, the charismatic frontman of Roxy Music. In no time, their high-profile relationship quickly became the talk of the music industry. In 1975, she famously spent hours being painted head to toe to pose as a striking blue mermaid for the iconic cover of the hit Roxy Music album, Siren. Jerry was deeply in love and soon proudly wore a beautiful engagement ring, living a glamorous, high-octane lifestyle that seemed completely secure to the outside world. However, everything shifted at a crowded dinner party in 1976. In this party, the iconic Mick Jagger was in attendance, and he became instantly infatuated with the remarkably tall Texas blonde. Immediately, Jagger began a relentless campaign of psychological warfare to win her over, completely ignoring the fact that she was happily engaged to his friend. He started making obsessive late-night phone calls across different time zones and orchestrating expensive, grand gestures behind the scenes to push a permanent wedge between the couple. He even had the absolute audacity to drop by the house she shared with Ferry, playfully chasing her around a ping-pong table when her fiancé was out. Jagger would leave confusing messages on their home answering machine, pretending he simply wanted to hang out with Ferry, while his true hidden goal was to steal Jerry away from her stable life. Well, this constant pressure worked perfectly, and the engagement completely fractured when Ferry went on a lengthy international music tour. After Ferry left, Jerry traveled to New York for a high-profile modeling job, where she reconnected with Jagger, and the pair officially began a secret affair. When Ferry discovered the painful truth through the media headlines, the public humiliation was absolutely devastating for the musician. In a sudden moment of bitter heartbreak and petty retaliation, Ferry reportedly refused to give back any of the designer clothes she left behind in their London home, forcing her to pack her bags and start her entire wardrobe completely from scratch. Suddenly, Jerry and Jagger were the most captivating power couple in the world. Flashing cameras and relentless paparazzi followed their every single move as they completely dominated the late 1970s fashion scene, turning heads as they became permanent fixtures at legendary nightclubs like Studio 54. Their chemistry was incredibly volatile and electric, creating a massive global media storm wherever they went. She felt an undeniable, magnetic connection to the energetic rock star, believing she had found her ultimate romantic match. Jerry was completely spellbound by the Rolling Stones' legendary frontman, entirely unaware that she was stepping straight into a highly volatile, pre-existing marital war zone. The war with Bianca Jagger. When Jerry fell for the rock icon, the timeline was incredibly messy because Jagger was still very much legally and publicly married to the famous Nicaraguan actress and socialite Bianca Jagger. Now, these two women represented completely different worlds, making a high-stakes clash an absolute certainty. However, Bianca was definitely not a person to sit quietly in the shadows while her husband paraded a new woman around the globe. Her reaction to the affair was swift and furious, generating massive headlines that shook the entire entertainment world. By mid-1978, Bianca officially filed for divorce on the explicit grounds of blatant adultery with Jerry Hall. This bold legal move exposed the fractured reality of the rock star's chaotic home life. It thrust Jerry directly into a brutal legal and media firestorm that would test her personal strength from day one. Suddenly, the international media spotlight turned incredibly harsh. Tabloids ruthlessly painted Jerry as a calculating homewrecker who had actively destroyed a high-profile marriage. She had to silently weather an immense wave of public backlash while learning to navigate the notoriously tight, complicated inner circle of the Rolling Stones. At the same time, the bitter financial fallout of the Jagger versus Bianca split was quietly rewriting the future. The messy divorce process cost Jagger a massive portion of his accumulated wealth and endless stress, setting a permanent, defensive precedent. From that exact moment, Jagger became intensely protective of his fortune. He created a strict financial blueprint for how he would handle long-term romantic relationships moving forward. Although Jerry did not realize it back then, this hidden financial paranoia would come back to haunt her decades down the line, when everything collapsed. Even during the early, exciting days of their romance, Jerry noticed several glaring red flags that should have made her pause. She began to realize that Jagger's lifestyle was deeply rooted in non-monogamy. She frequently caught undeniable glimpses of hyper-flirtatious behavioral patterns with other women. These were the exact same toxic traits that would continue to plague their relationship for the next 2 decades. And she also realized that the charm he used to win her over was a tool he used on many others. Despite these clear warning signs, Jerry chose to focus on building a stable future together. She successfully transitioned from being a hidden mistress to his officially recognized partner. The couple decided to plant roots away from the constant noise of London, establishing a grand domestic sanctuary at the sprawling Down House on Richmond Hill. This elegant Georgian estate became the absolute center of their family world, a place where Jerry hoped they could escape toxic temptations. With Bianca finally out of the picture, Jerry believed she could tame Rock's ultimate bachelor, though her first step required an absolute life-or-death ultimatum. The strict ultimatum. Now, stepping inside that grand mansion meant confronting the dark reality of rock excess head-on. And before they could truly build a stable life under the same roof, Jerry laid down a strict, non-negotiable condition that completely caught the rock star off guard. She demanded that Jagger completely clean up his act and give up smoking before she would move in. Her brave stance was a massive gamble, considering his wealth and global power, yet she flatly refused to back down. However, the demand that Jerry made was because she came straight from a practical Texas mindset and her tough Southern upbringing. Growing up with a volatile father who drove trucks carrying dangerous, explosive chemicals across the country, she developed a deep-seated fear of instability and hard substances early on. She knew how severe addiction ruthlessly destroyed legendary careers, physical looks, and everyday families. While others in their wealthy social circle viewed heavy substance use as a glamorous badge of honor, Jerry saw it as a dangerous dead end. Surprisingly, Jagger possessed the incredible willpower to meet her demands, proving how deeply he wanted to keep her by his side.
Jerry Hall was a sensation in the 1970s, and her relationship with famous British singer Mick Jagger only boosted her popularity.
Once the substances vanished, a shocking domestic transformation occurred behind the heavy iron gates of their quiet estate. The international runway star seamlessly pivoted into a structured, stay-at-home mother. She willingly traded the bright lights of Parisian fashion shows for the predictable rhythms of suburban family life. Jerry spent her afternoons cooking hearty meals, tending to a sprawling garden, and raising a flock of chickens to establish a genuine sense of normalcy. Her absolute highest priority was protecting their 4 young children, Elizabeth, James, Georgia May, and Gabriel. She remained fiercely determined to raise them entirely isolated from the toxic, predatory London party scene. She wanted them to have an authentic, grounded childhood, far removed from the constant media chaos and bad influences that usually followed massive rock bands around the globe. Even while assuming the difficult role of a traditional homemaker, her immense artistic impact on his career remained completely undeniable. Jagger openly drew direct inspiration from her for some of the biggest hits recorded by the Rolling Stones, including the massive chart topper Miss You, which he wrote while she was away on a modeling assignment in Paris. She was the ultimate creative muse, providing the emotional fuel for his timeless music. This intense reality forced Jerry into an exhausting double life that few human beings could ever successfully balance. On any given night, she had to project absolute, flawless elegance on global red carpets, standing beautifully before hundreds of flashing cameras. The very next morning, she returned home to Richmond Hill to privately manage a highly volatile and intensely competitive household filled with staff and endless moving parts. It was a grueling mental tightrope walk, requiring her to switch between a captivating international fantasy and a challenging domestic reality. For a time, Jerry's domestic sanctuary successfully kept Jagger grounded until his deep-seated, insatiable impulses pulled him back into the shadows. The master of deception. Living with Jagger meant mastering the art of coping with a partner who possessed a world-class talent for deception. Whenever rumors surfaced, he deployed a relentless strategy of absolute denial, a technique that modern audiences know well as gaslighting. Jerry frequently stated that no matter how much evidence piled up, Jagger would look her right in the eye and deny every single accusation to the bitter end. He was so incredibly convincing that he could make her question her own eyes and sanity. This repetitive, psychological chess match went on for years, creating a deeply unstable emotional foundation beneath their alluring lifestyle. She wanted to believe his desperate promises, hoping each mistake would be the very last. Yet the pattern never truly stopped. The ultimate test of her patience arrived in the early 1990s during the explosive Carla Bruni crisis. Bruni was a young, stunning Italian heiress and rising international supermodel who completely captivated the rock star. Their secret affair, which reportedly stretched across various global capitals for years, pushed Jerry to her absolute emotional limit. When Jerry finally uncovered the devastating truth, she was deeply crushed. She even called Bruni directly for an explanation, only for the younger model to calmly deny the relationship and hang up the phone. Jerry blamed Bruni for systematically tearing her family apart, and the intense jealousy even led to a public confrontation at a London concert where Jerry poured a mug of beer over a mutual friend's head for entertaining the secret lovers. Dealing with these constant betrayals quickly turned into an agonizing routine. Jerry frequently faced the horrifying experience of opening the morning newspaper only to read about her partner's latest romantic affairs alongside millions of total strangers. This relentless public humiliation created a painful soap opera effect, forcing her to process a highly private heartbreak in real time before a global audience. Every single rumor was dissected by global tabloids, turning her personal pain into cheap entertainment for the masses. The mental pressure of maintaining a strong public face during these episodes was completely exhausting. Through it all, Jerry developed a remarkably sharp perspective on the unique psychology of aging rock stars. She noted that married men often hunt for much younger women out of a desperate, subconscious fear of their own mortality. For Jagger, chasing youthful models was a way to outrun old age and prove he still possessed his legendary magnetism. Understanding this insecurity provided some explanation, though it did little to ease the everyday sting of his actions. Despite the constant embarrassment, her logic for repeatedly forgiving him was rooted in a profound commitment to her family. Jerry desperately wanted to keep her children's lives stable, shielding them from the trauma of a broken home. She truly believed that a unified family was worth the immense personal sacrifice. Desperate to secure a permanent commitment and legally bind her elusive partner, Jerry finally convinced Mick to walk down the aisle, or so she thought. The Bali Mirage, the wedding that never was. On November 21, 1990, the couple stood on a beautiful beach in Bali, Indonesia, to exchange their vows. It was an incredibly intimate and exotic Hindu wedding ceremony filled with traditional music, colorful garments, and sacred rituals. To the public, this event was a total masterpiece of romantic optics. Pictures of the smiling couple flashed across television screens and newspaper covers worldwide, creating an instant media sensation. It looked as though the world's most elusive rock bachelor had finally been tamed by the patient Texas beauty. For Jerry, this day felt like the ultimate victory after a decade of public patience and private sacrifice, giving her a deep sense of emotional security. However, a darker reality was quietly operating beneath the tropical romance. Jagger had meticulously organized the ceremony in this specific, remote destination for a highly calculated reason. By choosing an exotic location far away from England, he ensured that the marriage would remain a legal ghost. He deliberately avoided the necessary steps to register the paperwork with local authorities, meaning the union did not carry any strict legal obligations under British law. It was a defensive strategy designed to completely shield his massive Rolling Stones fortune from a standard asset split if things went wrong. When we look at it, we can see that Jagger essentially set up a legal trap while letting his partner believe they were forming a permanent bond. For nearly a decade following that beautiful beach ceremony, Jerry confidently walked through high society using the proud title of Mrs. Jagger. She built her entire world, raised their 4 growing children, and managed their grand Richmond Hill household under the total illusion of a legally binding marriage. She assumed her position as a protected wife was completely safe, relying entirely on the public promises they made to each other in front of their closest friends. Yet, the spiritual vows did absolutely nothing to alter Jagger's deep-seated habits. Shockingly, soon after the celebration ended, he returned to his old wandering ways, proving that a beach ceremony could not fix his fundamental lack of commitment. The familiar pattern of late nights and whispered rumors returned to their everyday lives, forcing Jerry to deal with the exact same painful infidelities that had always plagued them from the very start of their romance. Years later, Jerry experienced a clear-eyed realization about that day in the tropics. She understood that Jagger never viewed the Bali wedding as a sacred lifelong covenant. Instead, he treated the entire event as an elaborate piece of performance art, a beautiful show staged to appease her demands and quiet down the global media. He wanted the glittering public image of a dedicated husband without actually sacrificing the freedom of a single man. Jerry poured her heart into a marriage that existed only in her mind, completely unaware of the corporate-style planning that went into protecting his wealth. For 9 more years, Jerry clung to the dignity of her marriage, completely unprepared for the specific, undeniable bombshell that would instantly shatter it. The final straw, the Luciana Gimenez bombshell. It was 1999 when the ultimate breaking point arrived in a massive wave of unavoidable media coverage. The global press suddenly revealed a catastrophic secret that shook the entire entertainment industry. A 29-year-old Brazilian model named Luciana Gimenez Morad was pregnant, and she publicly named Mick Jagger as the father of her unborn child. For over 2 decades, Jerry had handled endless rumors of brief flings and quiet tour affairs, choosing to look away to keep her family together. But this situation was entirely different, representing a permanent, living proof of betrayal that could not be easily brushed aside or hidden from the public eye. The moment of discovery was incredibly painful and deeply personal for the supermodel. Jerry learned about the pregnancy the exact same way as the rest of the world, by reading the shocking headlines in the morning newspapers while sitting at home. Seeing her private life displayed so callously across global tabloids was the absolute limit of what her self-respect could endure. She could no longer tolerate the embarrassing, exhausting routine of forgiving a long-term partner who repeatedly dragged her name through public scandal. Instead of collapsing under the weight of the heartbreak, a remarkable shift occurred within the Texas supermodel. Jerry experienced a cold, calculated epiphany regarding the true nature of their long relationship. Following the birth of their 4th child, Gabriel, she looked at her domestic life with absolute clarity. She famously decided that Jagger had officially fulfilled his purpose as a mate, and it was time to cut ties permanently. She viewed the rock star as an excellent father, yet a completely failed husband, and she refused to sacrifice her remaining dignity for a toxic illusion. When Lucas Morris Murad Jagger finally arrived in May 1999, the difficult situation became legally undeniable for everyone involved because Mick Jagger denied the child. However, a definitive DNA test provided irrefutable evidence of paternity, rendering Jagger's classic strategy of endless denial completely useless. He could no longer rely on his smooth charm or exhausting excuses to minimize the situation to his family. Immediately, Jerry acted with swift, uncompromising determination to protect her interests. She bypassed any long discussions or private negotiations and immediately filed for divorce, completely catching the Rolling Stones' powerful public relations team off guard. Her decisive legal action shut down their frantic damage control plans before they could even start spinning the narrative in the press. She hired top-tier legal representation, determined to secure a fair financial resolution after more than 2 decades of dedication. This high-profile stance completely transformed how the world viewed her moving forward. She was no longer seen as a long-suffering rock wife who quietly accepted bad behavior. Instead, she became a global icon for empowered women everywhere, proving that self-respect was far more valuable than a glamorous lifestyle. Her quiet resilience inspired millions of fans who admired her ability to stand tall under immense psychological pressure. Jerry walked into the courtroom expecting a standard, high-stakes divorce battle, but Jagger's legal team was prepared to pull off the ultimate betrayal. The annulment legal battle.
Last week, Mick Jagger's wife, Jerry Hall, threw in the towel on Mick's wild ways and finally filed papers to end their rocky 8-year marriage. Mick's dancing around the law by claiming he and Jerry were never legally married.
Instead of facing a standard, predictable divorce negotiation, Jerry stepped into a high-stakes legal arena where Jagger's high-priced legal team deployed a truly ruthless defense strategy. To completely dismantle her financial and matrimonial claims, his lawyers dropped a devastating legal bombshell that shocked the public and dominated highly anticipated news cycles. They issued a blunt public statement arguing that the couple had never actually been legally married in the first place. While the spectacular 1990 beach wedding in Bali had featured beautiful traditional rituals and a sacred exchange of vows, Jagger's team revealed that the ceremony was never officially registered with the local Indonesian authorities. Because of this deliberate administrative omission, The entire union was declared legally void under both Indonesian and English law. This shocking declaration by the High Court caught Jerry completely off guard, instantly turning her legitimate quest for a divorce into a confusing, technical nightmare that left her legal representatives scrambling for immediate answers. This cold revelation caused Jerry profound emotional hurt and intense rage as she realized the true depth of the deception. Having her 22-year relationship and the stable upbringing of her 4 children legally reduced to a mere annulment felt like an absolute erasure of her lifelong dedication. She later admitted that erasing over 2 decades of shared family history felt incredibly rude and deeply disrespectful to everything they had built together. Behind the closed doors of the courtroom, Jagger used this massive legal loophole with sharp precision to safeguard his staggering multi-million-dollar Rolling Stones fortune. Without a legally recognized marriage, Jerry possessed no automatic legal right to a standard 50-50 split of his accumulated wealth under English law. The famous rock star successfully protected his massive estate, treating their decades of shared family life as a corporate liability to be managed rather than a sacred covenant between 2 loving partners. After months of grueling, private legal negotiations, the High Court Family Division finally ratified a confidential settlement to bring the painful public saga to a definitive end. Jerry did manage to secure sole ownership of their grand Richmond Hill mansion, Down House, which was a beautiful property valued at $5 million at the time, along with a substantial financial payout estimated to be worth millions more to secure her future. However, she completely lost the official legal status of a wife that she had rightfully earned through years of public loyalty and private sacrifice. This brutal legal maneuvering permanently altered Jerry's entire view of her own long-term partner. The immense creative pride she once felt for his musical genius was completely and utterly overshadowed by a clear, chilling view of his corporate coldness. She finally recognized that the legendary frontman was a highly calculated, cold businessman who would easily use any legal means necessary to protect his personal assets. The legal bond was completely erased, forcing Jerry to reinvent herself entirely away from the massive, suffocating shadow of the Rolling Stones. The aftermath. After the high-profile legal battle, Jerry Hall did not waste any time mourning. Instead, she stepped straight back into the public spotlight entirely on her own terms. She reinvented herself as a highly successful theater actress, earning widespread critical acclaim for her leading role as Mrs. Robinson in the West End production of The Graduate. She also maintained her strong position as a global fashion icon, continuing to land major modeling campaigns for luxury brands and proving to the world that her public value was never dependent on her proximity to a famous rock band. Jerry became a fully self-made woman, earning her own independent income and making her own personal choices for the first time in decades. This newfound independence paved the way for a surprising paradox in her relationship with Jagger. Over the years, the bitter legal battles completely faded, and the two transitioned into close friends and highly supportive co-parents. They even continued to share regular family vacations at their private properties on the Caribbean island of Mustique, showing that family unity could survive a messy breakup. Jerry always remained deeply realistic about her former partner's flaws. She famously stated that, "It probably suits him better not to be married. I think he sees a wife like a candlestick with a snuffer attached, someone to dampen his fun." By remaining close friends instead of spouses, she could enjoy his legendary charm without enduring his constant betrayals.
A day after their marriage, media mogul Rupert Murdoch and actress and model Jerry Hall have celebrated with a blessing London's Fleet Street.
Well, her personal journey took another highly publicized turn in 2016 when she married billionaire media tycoon Rupert Murdoch. The high-profile marriage seemed to offer a quiet, comfortable chapter of stability, yet it concluded in an equally staggering fashion. In the summer of 2022, Murdoch abruptly ended their 6-year marriage through a cold, brief email while Jerry was waiting for him at their estate. Once again, she faced a sudden exit from a powerful man's life. But her established resilience allowed her to walk away with a substantial financial settlement and her dignity fully intact. Through every single public chapter, Jerry maintained a uniquely grounded philosophy on life and aging. She consistently refused to undergo plastic surgery, famously calling cosmetic alterations idiotic attempts to keep unfaithful men. She believed that true beauty came from confidence rather than a surgeon's knife. Looking back on her high-octane rock history, she feels absolutely no regrets. She is completely at peace with her past choices, living a comfortable, highly independent life defined by her own personal achievements. Perhaps her greatest long-term victory is the remarkable success of her adult children. Elizabeth and Georgia May became highly successful international models. James found success in acting, and Gabriel launched his own media career. They all grew up to be stable, well-adjusted individuals, inheriting their mother's tough resilience and their father's distinct creative drive. They have remained a fiercely tight-knit family unit, a direct result of the protective, stable environment Jerry fought hard to build behind closed doors. Jerry proved that she never needed a rock star or a media billionaire to define her personal power. What do you think of her incredible survival story? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. For more content like this, click on the next video on your screen.